Zhongnanhai is in turmoil. The Central Military Commission, now led by General Zhang Youxia, has officially declared that he is assuming command, effectively stripping Xi Jinping of real control over China's armed forces. This is no longer an internal disagreement. It is a coordinated counteroffensive involving the military, princeling factions, and veteran party elites, all targeting Xi's failed military reforms and his centralized personalist rule. Now that the military no longer obeys the command of one man but returns to the principle of the party commands the gun, the era of governing the army through loyalty cults and personal power is officially over. Seismic shock in the Central Military Commission. Zhang Youxia declares replacement of Xi Jinping. Greetings. Today we bring you a stunning update from deep within Zhongnanhai, one that could shake the entire political structure of China. General Zhang Youxia has publicly announced that he is assuming the role of chairman of the Central Military Commission, effectively sidelining Xi Jinping from all military affairs. At the expanded session of the Central Military Commission, CMC, held in early June and lasting 10 days, General Zhang delivered a powerful and openly critical speech. This moment marked an unprecedented turning point in the history of the Chinese Communist Party's military leadership. In his address, he declared, "Comrades, the People's Liberation Army now stands at a historic crossroads. Since the 18th Party Congress, military reforms have been a mix of gains and losses, leaving us with profound lessons. Today we must review what has been achieved and lost, return to our foundational principles, and rebuild the very roots of our combat capability." Zhang pointed out that the military reforms carried out under Xi Jinping, such as replacing the 7 military regions with 5 theater commands and dismantling the 4 general departments into over a dozen function-based bureaus, have led to severe consequences. They greatly weakened the command structure, created a bloated and inefficient system, and seriously diminished combat readiness, rendering the military incapable of responding swiftly to real-world threats. He remarked, "The current theater command system is merely a symbolic structure. Mobilizing troops now requires multiple levels of approval, delaying action and undermining strategic opportunities." Most strikingly, Zhang directly criticized the military reforms spearheaded by Xi Jinping. The original intent of military reform was to strengthen the army, but in practice it has exposed a series of fatal flaws. Anti-corruption campaigns within the military, meant to cleanse internal rot, have gone to dangerous extremes, devolving into a Stalin-style purge. Numerous senior officers were purged without cause, leading to widespread injustice and wrongful prosecutions. These actions have severely shaken troop morale and degraded the army's combat strength. This destructive trend must come to an end. Military counteroffensive, restructuring the PLA and ending personality cults. At the expanded session of the Central Military Commission, General Zhang Youxia did more than just deliver a harsh critique of Xi Jinping's military reforms. He publicly unveiled a comprehensive plan to overhaul the entire structure of the Chinese armed forces, a move widely seen as a total repudiation of Xi's military legacy. Specifically, Zhang called for the restoration of the former structure of 7 military regions and 4 general departments, which had been dismantled during Xi's 2015-2016 military reforms. He emphasized the urgent need to re-establish a professional, unified, and efficient command system led by experienced military officers, not by political loyalists or family members of top leaders. He declared, "The chairman of the Central Military Commission must be a soldier. The army must obey the political leadership of the party, not the will of an individual. From now on, we strictly prohibit personal rule over the military, the formation of private armies, and interference by relatives of party leaders in military affairs." These statements clearly targeted Xi Jinping's model of personalist control over the military, including the undue influence of figures like Peng Liyuan, Xi's wife, Zhang Xiaojun, and other non-military insiders who had been placed in key positions of power. Zhang Youxia called for a complete removal of personality cults and the rebuilding of military morale through discipline and professionalism. He stressed, "From this point forward, the military shall follow only the orders of the Central Military Commission. Any individual or faction that dares to defy the new leadership will be punished without leniency." He announced a series of sweeping reforms, establishing a special task force under the CMC to review all personnel appointments made since the 18th Party Congress, implementing a normalized promotion system to end factional and relationship-based appointments, reaffirming the principle of soldiers managing soldiers, expanding internal party democracy, and allowing subordinates to submit suggestions to their superiors. eliminating wife politics and dismantling kinship-based networks that have disrupted military discipline. Immediately launching a force structure reform plan for all service branches to be completed with a new framework in place by the end of the year. Zhang also emphasized the need to tighten real combat training, eliminate formalism in drills, and restore the joint operational capabilities between service branches and military regions. He stated, "We must ensure the army is able to fight and win." Finally, Zhang called for an ideological rectification campaign across the armed forces, eliminating residual personality cults, reinforcing absolute party control, prohibiting all factionalism, and establishing a strict supervision mechanism through the Military Discipline Commission to investigate all instances of personal interference in military operations. The collapse of Jinping's military reform, consequences and internal backlash. Zhang Youxia's speech struck like a thunderclap, exposing the core failures of Xi Jinping's military reforms. It was not merely a bureaucratic announcement, but a political indictment of Xi's personalized command model, which had been aggressively promoted under the banner of strengthening combat capability since 2015. Xi had once promised reforms would make the PLA leaner, more efficient, and modern. Instead, the reality was the opposite. The reforms fractured the chain of command, crippled the rapid response mechanism, and turned the new theater commands into what Zhang described as rubber stamp command centers. Power was scattered across too many administrative departments, and the dismantling of regional coordination eroded operational readiness. The result was a sluggish, decentralized, and ineffective military. More critically, the reform effort was exposed as a political tool to eliminate military factions and consolidate personal power. Zhang declared, anti-corruption was used as a pretext for purges, turning legal tools into political weapons. Many senior officers were purged arbitrarily, creating waves of wrongful cases that severely damaged morale. Disillusionment began spreading across the ranks, including among those once seen as loyal to Xi. Calls to reverse the reforms and restore the old system emerged from within the top echelons of the military. This discontent stemmed not only from reduced combat capability, but also from the blatant interference of Xi's family and close associates, like Peng Liyuan and Zhang Xiaojun, in military affairs. To the PLA, this was a grave violation of military professionalism and institutional sovereignty. Zhang made his stance unmistakably clear. There must be no such thing as a private army. The army is the great wall of the nation, not the personal property of any individual. This was a direct warning against the dangers of personality cults in the military, which had led the PLA astray from its professional mandate. He further emphasized that an army loyal to a person, rather than the party, posed a serious threat to national security. More alarmingly, Zhang warned that the instability within the military had opened the door to external strategic risks, weakening China's military deterrence and its capacity to defend the state. The Prince faction strikes back, planned to force Ambil Jinping to step down. Following General Zhang Youxia's bold and near-insurrectionary speech at the CMC meeting, a new political wave has begun to surge from within the ranks of the princeling faction, descendants of the Chinese Communist Party's founding leaders. According to internal sources, several powerful Red families are now cooperating with the military to mount pressure on Xi Jinping to relinquish power. The fourth plenary session of the 20th Central Committee, originally scheduled for autumn 2024, has yet to be convened, raising speculation that the party is grappling with a major internal crisis. Amid an increasingly dire economic downturn, rumors of Xi's possible removal from leadership have been gaining momentum. Recently, the CCP held a high-profile memorial at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing to commemorate the 120th birth anniversary of Chen Yun, a revered party elder. All 7 members of the Politburo Standing Committee were present, along with a large gathering of princelings and Red family members, prompting speculation that this was an unprecedented political show of force, perhaps the largest since the 20th Party Congress. According to insiders, a red-blooded petition has been drafted by the princelings, urging the Central Committee to remove Xi Jinping with 2 principal charges: breaking the strategic power-sharing design laid out by Chen Yun, which dictated that power should remain within the family, meaning among the descendants of party founders; violating Deng Xiaoping's foreign policy doctrine of hide your strength and bide your time, resulting in China's worsening diplomatic and economic isolation. The primary initiator of this petition is said to be Kong Dan, a powerful figure within the princeling camp. Born in 1947, Kong is the son of Kong Yuan, former minister of the Central Investigation Department, and Xu Ming, secretary to Premier Zhou Enlai. He previously served as chairman of CITIC Group and is widely regarded as a leading figure on the left wing of the Princeling bloc. At a closed-door meeting, Kong Dan systematically laid out Xi Jinping's major governance failures, including the following. Xi Jinping is following in the footsteps of Mao Zedong, aiming to establish a lifelong dictatorship and monopolize power, leaving no room for other red families to share authority. He is turning the party's red inheritance into the private property of the Xi clan. Kong further accused Xi of using the anti-corruption campaign as a tool to seize the wealth of red families and purge proxy tycoons, such as Wu Xiaohui and Xiao Jianhua. This, he argued, undermined Chen Yun's principle that power and assets must remain in trusted hands within the system. Hidden plots, diplomatic crisis, and the looming fear of a Taiwan war. In addition to dismantling Chen Yun's internal power structure, Kong Dan condemned Xi Jinping for betraying Deng Xiaoping's foreign policy strategy, a low-profile approach that allowed China to expand its influence without provoking Western backlash. Thanks to that doctrine, the princeling class and party elites were able to quietly transfer vast amounts of wealth abroad, building a massive red capital network embedded deep within Western economies. Kong revealed, it's estimated that red families have transferred some 20 trillion yuan in assets overseas. Officially, these belong to individual officials, but in reality, they are strategic red funds infiltrating the West, forming the backbone of China's influence campaigns and soft power operations. Under Xi, however, that careful strategy has been replaced by aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy, which has alienated much of the global community and left China increasingly isolated. As a result, red family assets in the West now face the risk of being frozen, much like the fate of Russian elites after the Ukraine war. Kong issued a stark warning. Xi Jinping appears to be preparing for war with Taiwan, possibly before the 21st Party Congress in 2027. A move aimed at gaining wartime glory to justify prolonged rule. But the consequences would be disastrous. If war breaks out, the United States, Europe, and Japan would likely impose sweeping sanctions, freezing all overseas assets held by red families and their proxies. Kong called this scenario a total strategic annihilation. He concluded, if Xi remains in power and pushes ahead with a Taiwan war, the communist regime itself will face existential danger. We must stop this with political means, not a military coup or palace coup, but through the party's internal channels. For this reason, the princeling factions have reached a strategic consensus. Before the 21st Party Congress, a formal petition must be submitted to the party leadership demanding Xi's resignation to protect both the political future and economic interests of the entire red aristocracy. These internal revelations are being spread through traditional channels within the party, and they strongly suggest that beneath the surface of the Chen Yun memorial lies a growing undercurrent of political rebellion, a silent storm gathering strength behind closed doors. Growing isolation, signs of Xi Jinping's decline, and the shadow of Iran. While China's internal political storm continues to brew behind closed doors, President Xi Jinping is also facing increasing isolation on the international stage. One of the clearest signs came during his recent visit to Kazakhstan for the second China Central Asia Summit. Despite receiving a formal reception, the trip revealed a number of unmistakable signs of diplomatic cooling compared to his previous visits. No written speech delivered at the airport, no editorial or op-ed in Kazakh media ahead of the visit, no private dinner with President Tokayev, unlike the previous year. Notably absent was Kazakhstan's first deputy prime minister, a key figure in state protocol. Even more telling was the visual distancing seen during official meetings. Xi was seated clearly apart from senior Chinese officials like Kai Chi and Wang Yi, creating an image of intentional isolation. Chinese state media also removed several of Tokayev's direct praises for Xi, retaining only the generic phrase, "under the wise leadership of President Xi Jinping," fueling suspicions of internal censorship and growing insecurity. One moment stood out: Tokayev's peculiar birthday greeting to Xi. As President Xi Jinping visits Kazakhstan on the occasion of his birthday, I wish him health and happiness. Though seemingly polite, such a greeting can, in diplomatic language, hint at concerns over health. Notably, President Vladimir Putin, who had previously extended birthday wishes to Xi, remained completely silent, choosing instead to send greetings to Donald Trump on June 14th. This has prompted observers to question, Have world leaders already been briefed about Xi's deteriorating health and looming fall from power? Are they quietly preparing for a post-Xi era? At home, a series of loyalty-driven incidents, suspected acts of assassination or domestic terror are on the rise. The most recent case in Shenyang saw a bus plowing through traffic, killing 2 and injuring 18. Authorities labeled it a traffic accident, but the tone and content of the official report hint at efforts to downplay potential criminal intent, further fueling public suspicions of a deliberate attack. On the global front, the Israel-Iran conflict is entering a highly dangerous phase. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has openly declared his intent to overthrow Iran's theocratic regime, claiming it as a historic gesture of gratitude to the Persian Empire for liberating the Jews from Babylon. Meanwhile, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, son of the late Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, has stepped forward to announce the formation of a provisional government, signaling preparations to retake power should the current regime collapse. There are growing reports that the United States may join Israel in launching airstrikes against Iran's nuclear facilities and possibly initiate a decapitation strike targeting Iran's supreme leadership, a move that could drastically reshape the political landscape of the Middle East. What's more, Iran itself has confirmed it is prepared for such a scenario, admitting that it has contingency plans in place for the sudden loss of top leadership, indicating Tehran is bracing for a political earthquake. From this perspective, Iran today may very well mirror China's tomorrow. And that brings us to the end of today's commentary. If you found this analysis helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our latest updates, featuring in-depth, balanced, and honest reporting from us. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your support, and we'll see you again in the next program.